Hi, welcome to RCAM. I'm your host, Ryan, and thank you for tuning in today. So, today we are joined by Vapin Gamers. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were dealing some technical difficulties, but I think we've got
Lots,
it.
lots of technical difficulties.
I think we got the kinks worked out now. Tell my audience a little bit about yourself, man.
Gosh, where to start? I mean, I'm old. There's that. So there's lots of back life story and stuff like that. Originally, you know, I mean, how I came to Rumble. Um, I kind of, I found John Stossel and he was talking about Rumble, so that's what made me come here. And then, being here on Rumble, with being a free speech platform and stuff like that, people can be who they want, I think is what's kind of kept me here.
Yeah.
And of course, that's kind of like how I came to be here on this platform. And then in terms of everything that's happened in my life up until into this point, and even coming on Rumble has been kind of crazy. I'm married, been married now. We're celebrating 25 years this year.
That's awesome. Congratulations, dude.
Thank you. We got married in 2000, so at least I can remember my anniversary each and every single year. It's fantastic. Just think of the year, and it tells me how long I've been married about.
Hey, real quick, man. I always like asking like seasoned married people, like, what advice do you have to stay as married as long as you have? Because that's pretty awesome.
That is a tough question. Because there's so many different facets to it. One, of course, always pray for your spouse. I always try to pray for my wife. I try to pray for God to give me wisdom and how to talk to her and how to listen to her and stuff like that. Be willing to be open and to listen, and more than anything, forgiveness and grace.
Yeah,
Those
man.
two things, 100%. You have to. You're both humans. You're both, struggling through this life with a sin nature and dealing with things that are difficult, and so you have to be able to give each other room and forgiveness and grace as much as possible. It's kind of like I joke with my wife sometimes. Like, you really don't marry for love. You really marry someone that can put up with your crap for your whole entire life, and then kind of deal with it that way. So
Yeah.
that would be kind of my advice for that.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's the butterflies, and you
Mhm.
get all those strong feelings, and over time, love matures, and it's something that you actively have to choose to do, instead
Mhm.
of just merely relying on your feelings alone. It's a conscious choice that no, like, no matter how I'm feeling or no matter how she's feeling, I'm gonna love her regardless. So, yeah, 25 years is awesome, man.
Yeah, let me put this out on socials real quick,
Yeah.
and ask some questions. But yeah, that's because it's kind of crazy that we've been together that long. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but then it feels like it's been that long.
Chavez, man, what's going on, bro? We got Chavez in the chat.
What's up, Chavez? How you doing, bud? So we've been, and I appreciate that, Chavez. It's only the beard that makes me look like a legend. Other than that, that's pretty much it. But um, there are times where we have to sit down and have to talk, and we have to try to listen to each other's feelings and hear what each other says too. That's also very important.
Yeah.
Do am I completely perfect? No. A lot of times I can get so wrapped up in my work, um, that I lose sight of things that are really important, and because I tend to be a little bit of a workaholic. If nobody knows it can tell, but because I do like the Rumbot stuff. I'm doing live streams, all other kind of stuff, and so I can forget to kind of do that and kind of touch base with her, and that's important.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely having that balance is important. Like I intentionally do these streams at like 9 o'clock because it's when my kids are usually going down. My wife, she works evening shifts, so she doesn't usually get home till like 10 or 11. So
mhm.
I s- audio sounds, no echoes overlapped or hard, something to explain. Vapin's audio
Mm.
sounds doubled. Let me see. I might be able to fix that real quick.
Uh,
Thank you, Chavez. It should be good now, I
okay,
think.
is that better, Chavez? Because I mean, he's going to have a big old freaking show tomorrow night too, as well on
Yeah.
X, which is going to be good. So hopefully everybody can make it out for that too.
Yeah, I think it's at like 6 p.m., right, Chavez?
Yep, 6 p.m. Eastern, I believe.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll
Is
try
it
to
still is it
hop
still
in.
happening, Chavez? We'll give it a second here. But from me only, and it's still happening. Okay.
I only have it pulling from one source right now. So It shouldn't be.
Sounds
Okay,
wonderful.
good. Yeah,
Okay.
I got it
It's
now.
good now.
We're
Okay.
good.
But yeah, so as we're talking about marriage and stuff like that and having grace and stuff like that for each other, there was a lot of times, especially earlier in our marriage, we'd always have do-overs, where you really get heated for whatever particular reason. It doesn't matter what it is. And then he tries to use it to kind of wedge in between you and your spouse. And so we'd stop and just be like, I don't want to fight with you. I really don't have you're my best friend, you're my wife, you're not my enemy,
Yeah.
right? And so we'd have do-overs. We're like, we just do over. And so from that point forward, we just pretend like the rest of the early part of the day never happened. Doesn't matter what it was. And so we just completely forget about it and move on. And that really helped a lot during the beginning of our marriage too, as well. And then I just, as I kept going to God about, her, he just kept being about what about you? And I'm like, but what about her, Lord? He's like, no, what about you? But I'm like, but her. And he's like, but you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I get it now. It takes a little bit for him to kind of knock me, up inside the head sometimes to kind of get through this thick skull of mine.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things about marriage too, is like often when you're frustrated with something with your wife, it's often you're frustrated with something in yourself too. And God's teaching you to be patient, and he's teaching you long suffering, and he's teaching you to love the way that, Christ loves the church. So, and we're messy, man, and Jesus still loves us, man. We're messy. We could,
Yes, very, very much so. Very
yeah.
much so.
So
So,
I would love to hear, I guess, ultimately how you came to be a Christian. One of the reasons I'm doing this show and having guests on is because we're living in a really dark world, brother. I mean,
mhm,
it's getting crazy. We just had the Charlie Kirk shooting. I'm still feeling the weight of that. To be honest with you, it's still very real and very raw for me. And
same.
I want to have an outlet where people can inject a little bit of hope into this world because the world needs it, man.
Yeah, 100%. I will say this about, the whole Charlie Kirk thing. It affected me deeply, and I know it did a lot of people. I saw the video. It was absolutely horrific. Um, I used to do a lot of stuff like Charlie did. I wasn't as bold as him and go to the universities and stuff, but, we'll kind of get into all my background, how that kind of plays into it. But I used to do debates and talk to Muslims and atheists and, secularists and agnostics and all that other kind of stuff. And I would try to reason with them from the scriptures about our faith, and how to come to faith and to kind of overcome, what issues they had, you know. And the Bible's pretty clear about a lot of things. And I'm just going to throw that out there right now that I do not believe in the theory of evolution. I think it's the biggest hoax perpetrated upon the human race that's ever been invented by man.
Yeah.
100% for a lot of different reasons. And if you're a Christian, you believe in evolution, you really need to recheck yourself because theistic evolution is just not compatible. And we
No.
can get into that a little bit later too, as well. But if you want me to go ahead and just go back to like the beginning and kind
Yeah.
of go
Yeah. Go to the
forward.
beginning, man.
All right. Yeah. And if anybody's got any questions out there, feel free to throw it up in chat. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. And it's good to see all you guys. And make sure you guys are following RCAM here. Make sure you guys are throwing him a follow.
And make sure
Okay.
you're following Vapin because he's
I think a
awesome.
lot of them are, but I appreciate that. So basically, like I grew up going to church. Ever since I can remember, my parents were part of Calvary Chapel out in not in Oceanside necessarily, but in Southern California area, San Diego, Fallbrook, that kind of thing. Exactly, Chavez. Exactly. The only one that can make something from nothing is God.
Yep.
Other than that, it doesn't happen. It's a scientific impossibility.
You know what? I heard a really cool theory that it was like very kind of elementary to me, but it blew my mind. So, when people try to argue that the Earth is a million years old, or however many years old, when God made Adam, He made Adam as a grown man, so He made
Yep.
Adam with built-in age.
Yep.
And why can't He do that with the Earth?
Exactly. Exactly.
Where it already has age built in.
Exactly.
Something so small though, it just blew my mind.
Well, it's something, and that's true, right? And he came pre programmed from God
Yeah.
with everything he needed to survive, where we have to learn. Same thing with light. I've had, arguments with atheists about, well, where did light come from if God didn't create the sun, moon, and stars, I think, until like day 3 or whatever. I'm like, well, in the book of Revelation, it says we will not have any need of light anymore because God is light.
Yeah.
So when God says, let there be light, he just basically says, here I am. Boom, he's showing up. You know what I mean? Making his presence known. So
Yep.
that's not a problem for God. How did God make it seem like the light traveled millions of miles, from the stars to our location where we can see them today, right? Even though they're like billions of light years away. When God said, let there be light, he diffused the whole system at once. It's not impossible. He's God. He's outside of time and space. He can do all
Yep.
that. So anyway, but there's I really my favorite topic. Really, there's a lot of different topics that are my favorite. Christology is one of my favorite studies. Studying Christ in the Old Testament, I freaking love it. I really love the study of creation and of Noah, and what evidence in the world shows that the earth did suffer from a biblical flood.
Oh,
And that
cool.
we have what we have today, and the age of the earth. I'm not going to be a hardcore and be like it's 6,000 years old. I think it's probably between 6 and maybe 10,000 years. Nobody, I don't think, really knows for sure for various reasons. But all that to say, I mean, I got to that point because as I was growing up as a kid, I was going to Calvary Chapel, which, if you guys do not know, it was started by a man named Chuck Smith.
Yeah.
And there's a really incredible story that Chelsea Grammer just did, where they did a story about they did the life of Chuck Smith and how he became to be and how Calvary Chapel just exploded. Out in
Wasn't he
Southern
part of
California.
the Jesus Revolution, Chuck
Yeah,
Smith?
he was.
Yeah.
He started it actually.
Yeah, that's what I
Then,
thought. I know that movie that had Jonathan Rumi in it was, I
yeah, I'm
think,
trying to remember. It just
around
came out a
just
couple years
I think it
ago.
was called Jesus Revolution, to be honest with you.
Yes, it was. And uh, there, I mean, I can't begin unless you've been there, like in California, you've been part of the Calvary chapels and stuff like that. It's hard to tell exactly what that is like. Now, of course, I wasn't alive in the '60s when that whole movement happened, but even I think that movie was touched by the Holy Spirit for sure, because my wife and I, we came out of there crying and stuff like that about it. It's like, how awesome it is that we've been able to go to the Calvary Chapel, and just how much we almost felt like God was calling us to go back to California almost.
Yeah, my
'Cause
buddy
we live
goes to
in
Calvary
Texas now.
Chapel out by me. He really loves that church.
Yeah. And the thing that I like about Calvary Chapel more than anything else is that their approach to teaching the Bible is line by line, verse by verse.
Yep, I
So,
love that, bro.
okay. And that is so important, because when you have topical preaching, and it's not to say that there's not a place for topical preaching, there is 100%. We do it every Christmas, Thanksgiving, Father's Day, Mother's Day, all that stuff, right? But if you don't go through line by line, precept by precept, there's a lot of stuff that you miss, and that that you just don't get in a topical study.
Yeah.
Study on topics that say, like, Israel and the church. Does the church replace Israel or not? Right. Once saved, always saved. What does that mean? How about, the rapture? Is it biblical? Is it not biblical?
Yeah.
Creation. Is it true? Or did God use, evolution to make everything we see today? So, going through line by line, it forces you to kind of have to tackle these different subjects and things that sometimes a lot of people don't want to tackle.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I know I challenge myself because I had pastored a church for a little bit. That's what I did. I would go through books of the Bible, and that's just kind of how I learned. I had the privilege of having a pretty well studied pastor out when I was living in Tulsa, and that's how I learned most of what I know about the Bible was just going through book by book, line by line, and it was really rich. And I do topical sermons once in a while, but I do think yeah, that's the ideal way to do it.
yeah, and I mean, there's nothing bad, there's nothing wrong. There's some good teachers that do topical, I think, that handle that really well, but there can be a danger in it. It's the same thing. One of my red flags whenever I listen to somebody teaching or preaching is that if they start using multiple versions of a Bible to try to get their point across, that kind of throws up a red flag for me, because then it feels like they're torturing the text to get their point into it rather
Yeah.
than letting the text itself speak to you. Now, there's I've also done some stuff on textual criticism and stuff like that, which just means basically studying where the Bible comes from. Are the texts reliable? What text sources are better than others? I've lightly studied in that, and I've talked to some guys. I've had the privilege to be able to talk to some guys that study that for a living too, as well. So God's opened up a lot of different doors for me to be able to kind of go around, and I'm very seasoned. I'm very grounded in my faith. I know 100% that Jesus is real. I know the 100% that he sits at the right hand of the Father. I know that God is 100% real. I know the Holy Spirit's 100% real. Um, all that. I mean, God is as like you just like I told you. I know
Yeah.
that God is as real as the air that I breathe. Now,
Hmm.
can I explain that to somebody? That's tough
Yeah.
because when you're trying to explain who God is to someone who is dead inside, I kin that it's kind of like trying to explain the color blue to someone born blind.
Yeah. There's a veil over their eyes, man. They can't
Yes.
see. Hey, real Deadpool. Thank you for tuning in, man. I appreciate you.
What's up, real Deadpool? Good to see you, bud. And so all that to say, like, growing up, went to Calvary. I had a great time as a kid. My grandmother passed when I was about 15, and I got kind of upset with God about that. There was a whole lot of family drama going on at the time, and I really wanted to see her. And of course, it just didn't happen. She passed away the summer of when I was 15, and I just kind of went my own way after that for quite a while, up until I was in my mid 20s, right when I met my wife, just about. And then I just felt like God just calling me back and be like, you're way dead inside. I trust me, Deadpool. I know what you mean.
Hey, man.
Um,
There's hope, though.
yes, and so, you know, uh, after getting married to her and stuff like that, and coming back to faith, and it took her to church, and then she felt the move of God in her life and the calling of God in her life, and so we got saved and we started serving in the church. We did music ministry for a real long time. We used to do worship for home group studies. We used to do music for the children's ministry, and so we were very heavily involved.
You're very well rounded, man. You're very well seasoned in kind of seems like a multiple different ministries. That's cool.
Yeah, kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. To be honest,
I feel that.
and so we were out there in California, kind of doing that thing for a while, and then we felt like God was kind of calling us to come out to Texas. Or actually, no, I'll put it back. So we decided that we were gonna. First things first, I went on a trip with my dad out to Canada. We went fishing. Come back, and everybody's at work like, "What are you doing back?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Well, everyone's saying you moved to Texas." I'm like, "Where'd you guys get that?" We went to Canada of all places, right? So then 3 years later, we're just trying to figure out, we really don't want to be in California anymore. We were looking at to buy a home, and it was like $350,000 for, what you call it, a trailer,
Jeez.
right, for a mobile home. 350,000 for a mobile.
Oh my god.
No, not really, Deadpool. I just, I talk about stuff as it comes up, but I don't ever necessarily go into detail unless somebody wants to, because I can definitely bore them with a whole lot of details, if they're not interested. But so seeing that, I'm like, okay, so I was kind of open to the idea. Well, maybe we can move out of state, and so we kind of each prayed, and then we each picked 3 places, and San Antonio was one of the places we decided to pick together. So we came out here. Went to church, and the guy was preaching on Daniel, through the book of Daniel. And he's like, look, he goes, if you feel like God's calling you to do something, he goes, dare to be a Daniel, step out in faith and do it.
Yeah.
And so we both felt like that was God telling us that we, come out here. And, it was like February, it was like 70 degrees. And, we're like, yeah, we can totally do this. The weather's great, just like, back at home. So we start packing up, and, God has amazing ways to show you. There's a difference between wondering what path you're supposed to be walking on and walking on the path.
Yeah.
And knowing there's two totally different feelings that are involved with that. And so, as we were preparing to come out, we talked to an apartment complex here in town, and they're like, yeah, sure, we'll rent to you. We get down to like 2 days before the pods are going to be dropped off. And then the apartment complex calls him and is like, oh, sorry, we're not going to rent to you. We're like, what do you mean you're not going to rent to us? They're like, well, we just run. I said, we can pay you rent a year in advance. We have a year in advance of rent. That's no problem. They're like, we're still not going to rent to you.
What? Why?
We still don't know to this day. So then I'm panicking, and I call my wife. She's at work, and I'm like, you got to pray, because maybe we're not supposed to go, but we have like 24 hours to cancel the drop pods, or else we're going to lose like $2,000. And so, she's like, okay, well, so she hangs up the phone, and right as she hangs up the phone, one of her coworkers behind her, or that's in the office, came into her, said, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you, And God just told me that I need to tell you this. She was, but my daughter-in-law is an apartment manager there in San Antonio. You should give her a call. And so we
Wow.
call, and she's like, we have multitudes of apartments available. We can't fill any of them. We can't fill any of them. Name your price and your term. So we got to name our rent, and we got to name how long we stayed there for in the lease. So
Wow.
and so that's how we knew God was like, this is where He definitely wants us to be. He showed us that this is the city where He wanted to move us to. So we packed up about a day and a half later, and we came out here, and here we are. So
That's awesome, dude. I got chills a little bit, man. That's
yeah,
sick.
well, I mean, it's just there's a difference between wondering what God's will is and seeing Him open the door.
Yeah.
What happened to us? It was impossible, absolutely impossible for us to manipulate it any other way. We didn't know
Yeah.
what to do. No, I mean, you can't pack up your stuff and move to a city where one, you don't know anybody, and two, you have no place to live because no one's going to give you a. Where am I going to put my pods?
Yeah.
Where's my bed going to go?
Yeah, that's
So
nuts.
so we did all that. We came out here, and then right around 2007, I was playing a game. I've always been an avid gamer. And so right around 2007, I was playing a game called Matrix Online,
Okay.
which was like an MMO. It was right around the time of WoW and around the time of like Star Wars Galaxies. And you know, they used to do these events in the game. So like the characters that actually come in the game, like Morpheus would come into the game, Trinity would come into the game. If you're familiar with the Matrix at all, the character, they'd have the characters, people would play the characters, of course, and you could send them instant messages and they would DM you back, and it was like this whole thing. And so they use this thing called Winamp to kind of do like this online radio. So you'd listen to the radio while you're playing the game, and they tell you about the live events happening and be like, hey, they're over here in Central District, or they're going over here, there's a fight between the Merovingians and the machines and all this other stuff. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So you can actually do like your own online radio stuff. And I was like, so I started praying about it. I felt like God was like, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and start your own radio station. So that's what I did. I
Hmm.
started my own online radio station, which was, Christian focused, and ran that for many years. But I mean, I got to meet a lot of really amazing people that I consider to be giants in the faith, and that were, very instrumental in helping me to build my faith and my understanding of the biblical worldview.
Yeah.
Did that till about 2016. So about 9 years, 10 years. I wrote a book, got published by Thomas Nelson,
Oh,
about
sick,
how to
dude.
do an online radio ministry. And I mean, like, there's so many,
Dude, you've
like
had a
there's,
cool life, dude. You've done a lot.
there's a lot of aspects. Yeah, I know. When I sit down and think about it, it's really cool. Yep. Winamp. Exactly. It really, chaps the llama's butt, you know what I'm saying? for, for the clean version, for the show. But, yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird too, because, as I'm going through and I'm doing this, and I get approached to write this book, I was interviewed this guy, and he works with a lot of independent artists. And I used to do like a 3-hour show every Saturday. And he was like, this guy approached me about writing a book on doing, streaming online and doing internet, ministry and stuff like that. But I told him that I'm not the one to do it. I told him you should do it. And I was like, what? Well, okay. And then so they were going to pay me $5,000. They wanted to pay me $10,000 to do it,
Wow.
which was really cool. But then at the same time, because when my wife and I got married, we actually took off and ran to Vegas and got married. So I asked her dad Friday night. I was like, hey, can I have your daughter's hand in marriage? He's like, sure. When's the day? I was like, Sunday. Oh my God. So we drove all night to Vegas. We got married. We only dated for like 6 months. So it's a definitely a shout out to God, the fact we're still together. But so my wife always wanted to have like a proper ceremony and everything else. So we were able to use that $10,000 that I got paid to write the book to help pay for the wedding that she wanted. And so we did it here in San Antonio. All of our family and friends came out, and we were able to do it overlooking the river walk. And
That's awesome.
it was really awesome. But, even during that whole thing, there are moments in your life where God talks to you very clearly. And, as we were ramping up to get married, a friend of mine who we asked to do the ceremony, he was also a musician. I was like, hey, could you write us a song for our wedding or whatever, our renewal vows? He said, yeah, sure. And so we're talking to him for weeks and weeks and weeks, like, where is this song at, And so finally we go over, like, I think about a week or so before we were going to do it, and we went to have dinner, and God gave him the song for our wedding, like right then and there, like that morning before we came over. And he sang it. It was the most beautiful song I ever heard.
No,
And it was
that's
just like,
awesome.
I just heard God just, tell me in my spirit, he just said, I love you, enjoy, and it touched me so much that like, even to this day,
Wow.
it still really makes me like tear up and stuff because, we don't serve a God who's not alive. We don't serve a God who's just kind of out there in the cosmos.
Yeah.
He's very much involved in what we do and he sees what's going on.
Yeah.
Even all the stuff that's going on with Charlie Kirk, he sees it all.
Yeah.
Is he surprised by it? No,
No. No, he's not
no.
at all. I was what was it? Just a couple Wednesday, I think I was I just, felt a pull that I need to do something. I need to be involved somehow and I was praying, God, give me oh, I lost you, Vapin. I don't know what happened. You still there? I lost your camera, man. Oop, Vapin. Vapin. Well, I lost Vapin. I can't see him. Hold on 1 second. All right. Oh, you're back. Okay. Kind of.
Kind of, yes. Kind of. Can you hear
There
me?
you are. You're back. You're on the other side, but you're back. um so anyway, I was praying, just for direction and focus and what God
Mhm.
wants me to do, even with streaming, like I want a clear direction on what I'm supposed to do with streaming. Everything I want to do to glorify God. And I just felt him telling me, what's or asked me what's most important to me. And then like in an instant, I had like this flash of Charlie Kirk sharing the gospel, saying he was asked if he had like 30 seconds to live, what would he say, and he would share the gospel, and it was like, oh, that's yes, I'm gonna do that, God. I'll start doing that. So that's what I'm gonna do on Wednesday nights now, is just do like gospel oriented streams, and just talk about the Bible. Hey, B Money, I saw you in the chat, man. What's going on, bro? Hope you're having a
Good to
blessed
see you,
night.
B Money. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think that, when God tells you to do something, he definitely makes a way for you to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And he definitely, he'll let you know. I think of what's written in Revelation where it says that, Jesus is talking. He's like, behold, open up a door no man can shut, and I shut a door no man can open.
Yeah.
And so if God doesn't want you to do something, guess what? It doesn't matter how much you kick and scream. It doesn't matter how much you pull on that, whatever it is you want to do, it is not going to happen.
Yeah. Look at the story of Jonah.
Trust me. Yeah, Jonah, 100%. Yes.
He tried running, man. He tried escaping, the will of God in his life, and ultimately, though, he could not run.
I know. I always find it funny, his attitude about the whole thing. I often get this thing in my head where I see him going, getting really angry about it. And he goes, fine, I'll go. And he finally goes in and he's like, okay, well, 3 days, no, Nineveh's no more. That's it. That's all he said. Because he didn't want to talk to them. And God, they still use that. And probably the way that he looked, because he was sitting in the freaking whale's stomach for so long.
Yeah.
That just terrified them greatly, and they all freaking repented and turned. So
yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he must have looked crazy.
Well, you think about it. He was in the belly of the fish. They say the great fish, right? Assuming it's a whale. That's the way I've always assumed it. And so I mean, he's down there with the stomach acids and everything else kind of churning down there. I mean, you're gonna look. Have you guys ever been in the shower for like, or taking a bath for like 30 minutes to an hour? Multiply that times like 3 days.
Yeah, that's gnarly, man.
Okay. You're going to be wrinkly. You're going to be bright freaking white. He probably looked like death warmed over. I bet you money walking into that town, they were like, is he a ghost? What is this freaking crazy thing coming into town?
Yeah.
And, that's what he told them, and they turn and repent. So, what's impossible with man is possible with God. So,
yeah, I think I can resonate too with him to a degree. Like going back to the Charlie Kirk thing, it's like you see these people acting wild. I mean, just horrible. And like you're like, yeah, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to engage with them. They're being awful. But I think we could take a lesson from, the book of Jonah in what God ultimately wants us to do.
Yeah, and I think, and I'll be honest with everybody, my heart through this whole thing right now. And I was telling this to my wife during dinner. I'm struggling to love people on the left side right now.
Yeah.
I really am, because you know, uh, they're making a bigger issue over Jimmy Kimmel losing his show than they are the fact that Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck for speaking his opinion
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
trying to reason with people. And it's just so lopsided to me.
Yeah, and they're using
You,
the same language too. How we were talking
yeah,
about Charlie Kirk, like Jimmy Kimmel, some kind of hero or somebody is super I'm like, come on, guys, can you just have humanity for a little bit?
yeah, I know, I know. You hate them all, but equally in a DEI way. Deadpool. I mean, and that's really the struggle. Like, and I'm talking. I'm like, talking to the Lord. I'm like, I just, Lord, I don't know how to get past this.
Yeah,
Do they need to be saved like the rest of us? Yes. Hope the good thing and the wonderful thing about as a result of everything that did happen with Charlie, unfortunately, is that a lot of people have been snapped back into reality in terms of what really uh, leftism kind of does to people. And what I mean
yeah,
by leftism is that it's very humanistic centered. There is no God. There's no responsibility for anything you do. It's all about how you feel. There's
yeah,
no truth. It's whatever truth you want to make. More than one gender. They can't define what a woman is. I mean, all these crazy things that are, basic things, basic knowledge, that we know even through science, if you want to go the humanistic route, that a man can't be a woman and a woman can't be a man. You can get your stuff chopped off, tucked in, turned around any which way all day long. But at the end of the day, you still have to take the hormones because your body doesn't produce it naturally.
yeah.
Why? Because your DNA is written a specific way, the way that God intended.
Yeah, and the whole transgenderism, man, is like just nonsense on
It's
its face.
crazy.
It's like nobody in all of human history has transcended their gender. All these people are
Yes.
doing is masquerading as women or masquerading as men. No one can actually change their gender. That's impossible. Um, and it's one of those questions though that I do think gives you a good idea with the type of person that you're dealing with. Because if they've bought into that ideology, if they've accepted that in any kind of way, they've actually seeded reality itself. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
do you find common ground with somebody? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know Deadpool is like, I don't want them dead en masse, but exile is a thing, and we certainly could do without that influence on our kids.
Yeah.
American or not, I say get them all gone. And I'm, you know, Deadpool, that's like where I'm struggling, right? Because at the same time, I kind of feel that way.
Yeah.
It's like if you guys want to have this utopian experience, quote unquote, that you guys think is going to happen if just everyone adopted your lifestyle, which you can't even tell what gender you are depending upon the time of the week. Monday I feel like a they them. Thursday I feel like a who what.
Yep.
All this weird stuff that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's like let them go and have at it.
Yeah.
To some degree, because my fear is, of course, the Democrats and stuff are doubling down on what they're saying. And
Yeah.
they're calling it no. See, they're pushing fascism. Our democracy is being threatened right now because Jimmy Kimmel got removed off of his show, and so it's basically opening the door now for someone else to freaking shoot. Now there are reports that at the Charlie Kirk Memorial that there's supposed to be something happening. Don't know if that's true or not. I hope and pray to God not.
Yeah. I hope
If
to
someone
God
gets
not.
if
No.
someone gets shot and killed again, and that's where I kind of draw the line, Deadpool. If someone gets shot and killed again, um, I'm almost to the point like let them have California while the rest of us move on. Because it's just crazy. Deadpool, I agree with you,
Yeah.
and that's because it really kind of boils down to what you believe, right? A human is, right? I believe that man is created uh, in God's image, you know, and so as a result, we have a lot more worth than the rest of creation. And so God doesn't make mistakes when he creates us. He makes
No.
us all unique. We all have different tendencies to do certain things, to believe certain things or to feel a certain way. And that's okay. We all struggle with different things in our own way in our life. And I think God does that so that way it keeps us all humble,
Yeah.
Same reason why God doesn't give us colors like a peacock, right? If we were like a peacock, we just strut around looking about how gorgeous we look. I mean, there's already people that do that as it is. I mean, think of Kim Kardashian and all those guys, right? Um, so I hope that cool heads prevail. And the Democrats really need to tone it down. I know Deadpool. I know. I do. I was watching some video of them talking about that too as well, and that's because so many of them are also removed from, this message that God created man and that we
Yeah.
have value and worth. Doesn't matter the color of our skin. Melatonin in our skin matters not
Yeah.
at
Yeah,
all.
it's like it's one of those things too where it's just so frustrating that like everybody makes it on the race. And no, I see the right unfortunately doing this a lot too, which I don't like. I just, I just want to focus on like humanity first. And, if you're a Christian, like that's the most important thing to me right now is locking arms and being united with Christians. I did a monologue the other day where basically, I will not unite with these people in any way, shape,
Yeah.
or form, man, because they are just uh, their ideology is destructive and evil. I can't link arms with them in on anything.
Yep.
We live in fundamentally different realities, but I can link arms with other Christians and believers, and I think that's probably where my efforts are best served is helping build up the body of Christ because that's the only way that we're really going to make a difference in this world is if we are united and in one accord together, standing against the gates of hell that are pressing down on us. And
Yeah.
hey, Zareth, appreciate you popping in, man.
What's up, Zara? Good to see you. Um, but and I hear what you say, Deadpool, and I get that you don't believe in God, and I respect your opinion, even though we could talk about it later because I think there definitely is 100% more than enough evidence to prove that God is real and God exists. Just the different stuff I've seen in my life. Another example. We were young, married. We were totally broke. My wife got super sick. My wife has asthma, and so she doesn't get her medications. She can basically suffocate and die. Um, and so, we had no money, and I kid you, no money. She's like, I've got to go, we got to go to the emergency clinic or whatever, community clinic. I'm like, okay, fine. Stop by the bank in the morning. There's $0 in there. I think there was like 6 cents in our checking account at the time. But I'm like, great. So we go to the doctor, and something inside was just like, you can't spend more than like $65. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we go see the doctor, get in there. The bill was like $63.44 or something like that. I'm like, okay, well, let's go back and check the count. And there was like $70 in there. We still don't know to this day where it came from. We called the bank to be like, where did this money come from? Because I had the two receipts. I mean, of course, my big fat freaking hot butt freaking melted it because it was a heat receipt. But we were in the morning, there was like no money, and then magically in the afternoon after we get done going to the doctor, there's like $70 in the account. We still don't know where it came from. The bank said that it looked like the money was always there. They didn't see a discrepancy on their end at all, and we're praising God for it.
That's
So
amazing.
there's different things like that where He has shown that He is absolutely real. You know, um, and and just know I respect the hell out of it. I appreciate you, Deadpool, 100%. We can talk,
Yeah, man. Yeah, and if
but
you do have any questions, bro, feel free to ask because I think we're both believers here. We both want to try to answer any questions.
and so all that to say, coming back to everything that I've been able to do in my life, did the radio stuff. I enjoyed it. Got to do Skype casts and all that other kind of stuff, which is a lot like what Charlie was doing in the universities, though I was doing it more in a digital sphere.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it's weird when you talk to different people from different points of life, even like a lot of atheists and stuff like that. And you're probably more of an agnostic than you are an atheist, Deadpool. That's because I don't think in order to be an atheist, you have to know 100% of everything in the universe. And it's humanistically, it's impossible. Our brains can't contain that much knowledge. Because, even if say half of all the knowledge in the universe, is it possible that God exists in the other half that you don't know nothing about? Yes. You'd have to be realistically, use logic and be like, that's a possibility.
Chavez writes, I'm almost completely convinced now at this point there's two types of creatures in the world. One, sinners who either accept or reject Christ, or demons. Yeah, dude. You're right.
Yeah. Antagonistic. Devil. Yeah. It's more like agnostic. So it's like, you don't believe in God, but it's a possibility that he exists. You just don't know. And I think, if you really talk to a lot of atheists and stuff, that's really where they're at. One of the things that I used to really drive a lot of atheists crazy with was, I'd always point out the fact that they have faith, and they're always like, "No, I don't." I'm like, "Yes, you do. We all exercise faith every single day. Faith is what is it? Evidence of things not seen, of
Yep.
things hoped for,
Yep.
right?" And so when you go to sit down on your chair, when you go to use your computer, when you go to start your car, you have faith that when you put the key in the ignition, regardless if it's done it before, that it's going to start and it's going to do what you want it to do. If not, you'd have to go out and check all the wiring, make sure the gas is in there, check the combustion, make sure the spark plugs are firing just right. All that stuff you'd have to do each and every single time. That is a faith. That is a type of faith. So but needless to say, all that to say, so getting to do that and to do kind of like what Charlie did, I get where he's coming from. Though I will say that at the time that I was doing it, it was a lot less hostile.
Yeah.
Though it was like during the time of like Obama, and there was a real kind of pulling away from a lot of traditional values, especially here in America. Definition of marriage. Then you had like Obamacare that came out, and there was, had them on record as being like, Tom Daschle, who was like the Secretary of Health, was like, well, maybe your Uncle Johnny is 62 years old and maybe he doesn't deserve to have a heart. Maybe it's just time for him to go. It's like, well, who the hell are you to decide who gets to live and die, who gets a transplant or not?
Yeah, it's sick.
Yeah, but that's kind of the mindset, because whenever you do have, government run healthcare, you're no longer, Aaron, you're no longer, Ryan, you're no longer, Deadpool or Chavez. You are, patient number 007584. And so when they deny your medical coverage or make you wait an astronomically long time, like they do over in the UK or in Canada, then it's okay. There's no,
in Canada, they're letting you,
behind it.
they're killing you. They call it medical assistance in dying.
Oh, yeah.
I call it MAME, medical assistance in murder, because that's what they're doing. They're killing people, because they're homeless or they're depressed. Like, I'm like, this is freaking crazy.
Deadpool says the whole thing about believing an old man sits in the clouds, meting out punishments and granting wishes seems too Disney to me. Now, a greater force in the universe my tiny human brain can't comprehend, but a greater force out there in the universe makes a lot of sense, but beyond my comprehension. So, and I get that, Deadpool, I do. And God's not just, sitting on a cloud and doing all this stuff. He is very much involved, and he sees everything that goes on. And all of it is because of the wickedness of man. And people can argue all day long that men aren't bad, right? Well, if that's the case, then why is it natural for our children to lie and to steal? You can tell your child, don't eat the chocolate cookies. You go do something, come back, and there's chocolate and crumbs all over his face, all over his fingers, and there's crumbs everywhere. And you're like, did you get into the cookies I told you not to? And they'll look at you straight face and be like, no. Or how about take away their favorite toy? And if they had the strength, they would freaking kill you where you stand to get what they want. Right? When they don't have any kind of discipline or any of those things. That's a whole other topic we could talk about, because we see a lot of that going on in society right now. Especially in some communities where, there's not a father figure in the home. They're taught to rely upon the government for all their sustenance and stuff like that. There's no accountability, and
which I do think does bring
crazy
into an interesting conversation about like the shortcomings of the church, because I do believe like we are supposed to be meeting the needs of the people, and if the church was actually doing their part in being the hands and feet of Jesus by meeting the needs of the poor and the needy and the homeless and the downtrodden, that the people wouldn't even need government assistance. But it's like that the need for government assistance almost in a way was a way to displace the church.
Yeah, and I think that the church has failed in that aspect for sure. I think 100%. I mean, there was one time, and I got really angry. I got really kind of upset that we had our heater. I mean, God works in mysterious ways. So we were in our house over on the other side of one of our first houses, and so we always get our heater inspected every fall and winter just to make sure it's ready for the cold weather, right? And Red Dead Pill, I tell you what, I don't know everything either, so it's a great place to be. Be like a child, and that's how we all learn. But so we had the heat guy come out, He tested. He goes, okay, your heater's fine. And we're like, okay, well, even though it's making like this weird noise, he said yes. He said it's totally fine. We go to bed that night. We get woken up like at 2 a.m. because it's like 30 degrees outside, heater's on, and this alarm's just blaring. We're like, what the heck is this thing? Well, the person that bought the house before us installed a CO2 detector and had it plugged into the hallway, right? We never heard of a CO2 detector. We always had electric heat. We didn't even think about it. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange. So we turn off the heater for a little bit. I open up the back door, and then we close the door, turn the heater back on, and went back to sleep. Hour later, the thing's blaring again. So we have to turn off the heater. It's like 30 degrees, massive cold fronts coming through San Antonio. We got the technician to come back out, and he goes, oh yeah, this is blowing out like 5 times lethal limit of CO2. If the person before us that lived in the house did not buy that, I would not be sitting here.
Wow.
We never bought one. And so God took care of us and spared our lives in that instance, right? And so then we told all of our Christian friends that, hey, we're without heat and there's a cold front. They're like, okay, be warm.
Jeez.
That's all they did. The only people that actually that helped us and gave us even some heaters, like floor heaters and stuff for us to use, were non-believers.
Wow. That's awful,
you know, and,
man.
and it goes back to where is it James, where he's talking about, that if you tell your brother, be warm and well fed, but you don't do anything for him, then where's your faith?
Yeah, faith without action is dead, man. Like, it requires something of us. We can't just say we believe in Jesus and then fail to act on that belief. I mean, that belief should be transformative in our lives and compelling us to help our neighbors. That's what it means to love them. If we love our neighbors, we're going to treat them, do unto them as we would want done to ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, even like, my heart and stuff like that, like, being a developer here on Rumble and developing like Rumbot and all that other kind of stuff. That's why my heart is that I'm always like, hey, my DMs are open. If you guys need help with anything, just reach out.
And that is totally true, by the way,
Right?
everybody. I've reached out to Vapin. I've had my buddy reach out to Vapin, and he's just been nothing but a rock star, and not lost on me, man. I definitely appreciate it.
I think that God gives each of us gifts and talents and abilities that we are supposed to use, not just for ourselves, but also to help other people. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
And so, I think, circling back to the church and stuff like that and dealing with society and stuff like that. I think the church has really dropped the ball. In my shows that I was doing before on my radio station, I was warning people that this stuff was coming. I was like, all this different stuff about how people are talking about the lack of respect for life, the lack of respect for family. I'm like, all this stuff was turning, and people just didn't want to hear it. They just tuned out. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. So like, I got really kind of burnt out on doing it, because it would take a lot of my time once a week. I'd go and program the whole entire week of studies and commercial breaks. I would do all the voiceover work and all that other kind of stuff for it. And then I kind of took a break for a year. I shut it down, took a break for a year. Then I heard about gaming streaming, and then that's kind of like where I'm at now today. But as a result of all of that, I've learned how to code and to make, software. I've learned how to make websites and all that other kind of stuff. I can, I know how to program a radio station and freaking run it, with people listening all over the world. Got some really cool stories from other believers in like places like Iran and Iraq and stuff that, their parents didn't know that they were believers, and that they were, talking to me from an internet cafe, risking their life just, to get some prayer or just to, give a praise report that, hey, to keep it up. And so
that's amazing.
Because no one really knew about my radio station, even though we had a good, following. I think we were doing like 5,000 people a day or so were tuning in to hear, Bible study and the gospel and stuff. That it would get through all the fire barriers, because if they know who you are in those places, they just put you in a fire barrier. You can't even get in the country.
Yeah.
So you never know how God will use you, just by doing a small thing.
Yeah.
You never know, you never know. So, I've seen God's hand move and do things that are completely unexplainable by natural means. There's no other way about it other than the fact that it was God. And clearly, you could tell.
Yeah. I just wanted to just catch up a chat real quick.
Sure.
So we had Chavez say, I'm with that Vape was saying earlier, it's getting easier and easier to hate people and harder to love them. He's not alone in his struggles. Yeah, dude. I feel that, bro. I feel that because I was literally just saying this on Wednesday. I'm struggling right now to love people the way that they need to. But then I read stories like Stephen, man. And Stephen's the first martyr. And as these people are murdering him, he's
Hmm.
praying and he's he asked God to forgive them for they don't know what they're doing, echoing the very words of Christ. And I'm like, if he can forgive them as they're murdering him, then I need to find it within myself to forgive these people as they're saying hateful things to me on the internet.
Well, even like, even a lot of the things that, we read about, I heard it from somebody else the other day and I was like, that's a brilliant point. That the stuff that we read, like in the book of Romans and Timothy and Titus, right? And all these things about loving your neighbor and working out your faith, the book of James, the church was very much being slaughtered by the Roman Empire. They
Yeah.
were living in fear.
Yeah.
If they get caught and they didn't, pay the tithes and bow down to Caesar and proclaim him as God, they were used as fodder in the games inside the Colosseum. And I've seen the Colosseum is amazing.
Yeah.
Went to Italy a couple of like 2 years ago. Italy is gorgeous, you guys. Go if you can. All the historical sites, absolutely amazing, including the Colosseum. And it just, the way that they had it set up, and it just made me think about, all the people freaking dying in the Colosseum just to the roar of the crowd, just because they were, Christians and stuff like that. It was, like 400 years or so before Rome became, Christian.
Yeah.
And before, if you want to say the first like true Catholic church rather than the Roman Catholics, which is a branch, Catholic meaning universal,
Yeah.
and so it became a Christian nation and they stopped persecuting Christians. And then we have all the history leading up to now. I mean, it's all of it is fascinating. I love studying history. I think it's great. So
Yeah, totally. Zareth Darkmind says, I have a very hot take about government assistance. I feel a bit that is enabling. Well, I think it's 100%
yep.
doing that. I think it's
Yeah.
100% doing that.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, it's okay a little bit, but not for long term.
Yeah, it should be very short term.
Anything past like maybe, 5-6 months, then I think that's just too long. And then now you're, making somebody, plus, once you get on, government assistance, it's almost impossible to get off,
Yeah. I
because then
also
as you
think
start
it's
to make stuff, they cut it off.
one of those things too that it negatively impacts marriage,
Yep.
because like it incentivizes women to rely on the government than their spouses or their boyfriends or whatever, and it creates this dependency and this wedge in between them. Give me 1 second. I just gotta send my kiddo off to bed. I don't know if you just
Sure.
want to
Go for it.
keep up with
I'll
chat
just
real
talk to
quick.
people in chat. That's fine. But yeah, guys, I have you can still probably find some of my stuff on my shows back in the day, but I mean, I used to do this, talk about this stuff for like 2-3 hours every single week. And it's very tiring, very tiring. But I did stuff on places like Stickam, which I guess people call it Stick Cam, but I'm stubborn that way. Stick 'em. It's just easier, roll off the tongue, stick 'em. Yeah. So, if you guys got questions for me about anything I believe or whatever, you guys are free to ask. And I appreciate you guys coming by and checking out Ryan tonight. Make sure you guys throw him a follow. I need to do the same because for whatever particular reason, I thought I was already and I'm not. So I went ahead and threw him a follow. I'll tell him when he gets back because I'm a bad person for not following this guy. There we go. Okay. Say Rumblebot's telling on me. Thanks, Rumblebot. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. But it's kind of weird. As I do look at everything that's going on with like Charlie Kirk and stuff like that, I think all of us, I don't know where that line is. I know sometimes that there's also that tough love comes into play too, as well. You know what I mean? I appreciate Deadpool. See, I threw you a follow, bro. You're not supposed to see that, but your bot told on me because I totally forgot to follow your channel before. So I apologize.
It's okay, man. I appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah.
Where were we?
I'm just talking about government and stuff like that. And I'm just getting back to the whole Charlie Kirk thing and trying to love other people. There's also a sense of tough love that also is part of love.
Yeah, I also think people don't understand that, at least Christian love is, it actually means something. It's defined in something. Jesus says, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." So the
Hmm.
commandments is kind of the litmus test for how we love God and how we love others. And if we are sinning against God or we are sinning against others, then we are walking out of love.
Yeah, and and that's can be very hard, because we have like this human nature inside of us that that can rise up and stuff like that sometimes and do things out of anger. Now there is such a thing as righteous anger.
Yeah.
What happened to Charlie Kirk? 100% righteous anger. Them mocking the fact that he got shot and killed and watching it over and over and over again, or the teacher showing it to those 10-year-olds up in Canada over and over and over again. Hell yeah, that's righteous anger.
Yeah.
That's sick. That's disgusted. That's demonic. That's twisted.
Yeah.
Um, there is righteous anger and there's appropriate things to do. These people need to take some time off, go work at Burger King, and then come back and be thankful for the fact that they have the ability to work and take care of their families. It's just freaking crazy.
Yeah. Granted,
Yeah.
yeah. Granted, everything I said before, I'd also have no issue whatsoever being the guy who gets to throw the switch or fire the rifle on the shooter. I do think the death penalty is something that is needed and warranted in cases like
Yes.
this. I actually think the fact that we don't use the death penalty barely at all anymore, it
Yeah.
actually emboldens evil. It creates more evil and more horrific acts like the ones we're seeing because the criminals feel like they can get away with it.
Yeah. I mean, and look what happened to the young lady too on the subway just before Charlie Kirk
Yeah.
too.
Horrible.
I mean, that guy should have been locked up. He had mental issues, mental instability, and he should have been put behind bars.
Yeah.
Not only for his own protection, but for the protection of society too, as well. That would be the loving thing.
Yeah, we have a responsibility to do that.
Yes. And I still find it horrific that no one on the train did anything.
Yeah, that
You're
was
showing
disturbing.
your screen.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Okay.
I just fixed that. My bad.
No, it's fine because what it made me think of is there was a time my wife and I owned my own vape business for a while too. It's one of the other things I did. I've done a lot of things, guys. And so my wife and I went to one of the local stores here that was carrying my juice. I used to make my own vape juice. And so as we were in there kind of hanging out, we got into the car, turn on the headlights, and all of a sudden this woman comes running in front of the car. And I talked a little bit about this on X. But and she was bloody. There was blood coming out of her face. She was black and blue. And my wife and I are like, we're staring at like, what the heck is going on? So I roll down my window. She's like, please get me out of here, please. My boyfriend's looking for me. He's gonna kill me. You got to get me out of here.
God.
I mean, what do you do in that situation? Do I just roll up the window and be like, okay, I'll pray for you? No. In that instance, I was like, okay, get in. I freaking unlocked the door. She hopped in. We closed the door and we freaking took off and got her out over to the local grocery store called HEB here, where we could call the cops and get her the help that she needed.
Yeah.
She was bleeding profusely.
Modern times, people would have like rolled down their windows and started recording as she was getting murdered. That's
Probably,
what would
dude.
happen.
Probably. My wife was like,
Sick.
that's pretty brave that you did that. I can't believe you did that. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Somebody's in need right there. And it's like, you have to take action.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shocking at first. And I can understand some of those people maybe being kind of shocked for a second. But then as she's bleeding, I mean, get up and help.
Yeah.
Get up and freaking help. Get off your phone, put it in your pocket, do something. It's just unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, it was really tragic, man. It's been kind of tragedy after tragedy because we
Mhm.
had the Christian school in Minnesota
Yep.
get attacked by a trans radical, and then we had the stabbing on that bus, which is just brutal and very sad. And then we had this issue happen, or this incident with Charlie Kirk, which is just one of the most tragic things that I've seen in a really long time. And it's like very, very clear right now that there's a lot of evil in the world, and we
Mhm.
can't be complacent as believers. We can't be apathetic, and I think apathy breeds this type of stuff.
It does. There's, what my wife and I, our son, he's adopted. And he's special needs. And so in some ways I'm thankful that he's special needs because he's a great kid. When he wants to be, he has moments. And love him to death. And then sometimes I wish he wasn't. But at the same time, Like if he was in the school system right now with what they're trying to push in the school, I don't know. I would probably be one of those parents getting arrested or something, making a spectacle.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that the schools are doing. I just don't agree with. You know.
Yeah, that's why me and my wife we do a hybrid homeschool. So like our daughter's home three days a week, and then 2 days a week she goes to this Christian school, and that's been very very good for us. But they it's classical education, and we don't have to worry about them injecting any woke nonsense into her
Hmm.
curriculum. It's all Bible
Which is
based.
good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and of course, Dread says no way women in those relationships will stab you. Yeah, you're talking about like in an abusive relationship situation, right? That can happen, but I mean that takes wisdom to know in that situation in that moment right there, what you should do. I mean, if someone wants to keep going back, I don't really know what you can do for them other than love them the first time, warn them the second time, love them, and be like, you got to stop. You know, I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, then it's on
It's
them
it's
at that point.
it's tough, dude. Sometimes tough love, you have to let it run its course. Unfortunately, what that is. Um, I don't know. I think that really comes with wisdom and stuff like that to know kind of what to do. It's tough sometimes, man. Life is not easy, and it's that way on purpose
Yeah.
to show us that we need a creator and to rely upon a higher power than ourselves.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
totally. I 100% agree, man.
So, but that's kind of like my story. That's who I am. That's where I've gotten to where I'm at today, and I've done lots of cool things in my life. Seen lots of amazing things, and I feel like I've had a very full life. So if God was to take me home tomorrow, I'm all right. You know.
That's awesome, man. It is. I mean, it sounds like you've had a very rich life, man, and I'm grateful that I did have this opportunity to kind of speak to you, and I could tell that you're just a man that you're full of wisdom, bro, and you've seen a lot and you've experienced a lot, and I think the world needs people like you, to be honest with you, and especially in the avenue that you're in. It's like you're reaching people in a different capacity. It's like you're going into every man's world, and right now you're in the gaming space and you're connecting with that community. I think that's really great, man, and I really do pray that God continues to grow that for you and give you more influence in that area because
Appreciate that.
it takes all of us, man. And we
Yep.
all have, a different mission that we're called to. And I do pray nothing but success for you in that avenue.
I appreciate that. That's why the Bible when it discusses different things, like we're all the body.
Hmm.
All of us are different. We all have different functions and stuff like that in it. Not any one function is better or more important than the other. We all have a job to do.
Yeah.
Don't get jealous. Put your head down. Get to work. Do what God's called you to do. Try to love others. Try to be supportive, and use your gifts in a way that's both going to glorify Him and also help everybody else out. I think that's important.
Yeah, man.
Um, and in terms of grappling with faith and all that other kind of stuff, is the Bible true? Is it not true? There's lots of different tools out there that you can, if you want to sit down and have an honest discussion about it. I will say that in terms of historical precedents, there's no other ancient book in human history that has much evidence for it as the Bible does.
Yeah.
There is so many. It's an embarrassment of riches in the manuscript area. Now there are maybe some slight mistakes in some of the manuscripts. Usually, it's names of places that are misspelled or names of people that are misspelled, but the function and the core of what the text is saying and what it's teaching is the same,
Yeah.
all the way across, all the way out.
The way I like to describe the Bible, it's in cybersecurity, there's this principle called cryptography, and
Hmm.
and basically it's like like no matter how somebody tries to alter a message, the original contents of the message don't change, and that's how the Bible is. So even if somebody attempts to do that, or they do it by accident, the core message of Scripture remains the same because the Bible is cryptographic.
Yeah, and there's there I would say that's definitely happened with like Codex Sinaiticus and some of the other ones too as well. I'm more of the received text kind of school of thought, which is more on the King James, New King James version of the translation, following the received text. Um, so all that to say, we have fragments going all the way down that date to within the lifetime of one of the writers.
Yeah.
It's very possible that it's a fragment of the original letter. We don't know. But when you look at that, say compared to even say something like Shakespeare, who nobody argues with, that he existed, we don't even know really who Shakespeare was. We don't know really if these are his original writings or somebody else. And the earliest manuscript to his life is like 500 years or something crazy like that.
Hmm.
But I mean, that's because God decided to use Israel, the Jewish nation, to give his message to mankind.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that if you look at the differences, for example, Deadpool, between manuscript copying, right? Say the Old Testament versus the New Testament is also written by Jews, other than Luke, who I think is the only Gentile writer in the New Testament. I believe, I could be wrong. And there's also a Gentile writer in the Old Testament in Daniel by Nebuchadnezzar. And I can't remember if there's anybody else in the Old Testament. It escapes me for the lack of a thing. But the Jewish scribes were much more careful to copy the manuscripts than the Gentile scribes during the time of the church. The Jewish scribes, when they came to like the word of God or the name of God, they would go and they would be ceremonial. They would take a ceremonial bath, clean themselves, and then they even wouldn't write out his full name, right? And they were very meticulous in their copying, to where if there was even a slight variation or error in their copy, they'd throw it away. And that's why when you go to, like, I forget which museum it is over in Israel, where they have the scroll of Isaiah from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they look at their book of Isaiah that they have today, it's exactly word for word the same, because they took great care to make sure that they copied it down word for word as it was given. Whereas the Gentiles were a little bit more sloppier, unfortunately, just the way that it is.
Yeah.
But it's an incredible book all the way around. Historically, it's accurate. Anything that it touches on scientific, it's true. Like Paul talking about the dividing between the bone and the marrow, which we didn't even know about marrow until like the 1940s, I think, or something crazy like that. Or how about the fountains of the deep? We didn't know there were fountains in the deep ocean until like 1965 or something like that. Or how about the great beasts that are talked about in the Old Testament in the book of Job, right? Where God's talking about this gigantic animal that has tails like a cedar tree. We didn't know what dinosaurs were up until, or at least, modern man, I would say. I think dinosaurs have been around for a while, but we didn't even know what dinosaurs were. I mean, that word wasn't invented until like 1847 or something crazy like that. When you go back and you look at all that stuff, I mean, the Bible is an amazing book. And on the talks about the circle of the earth, for example. Bible called the earth round for centuries before we figured it out. So it's an incredible book, and there's a lot of evidence for it that shows that it is true and that it is accurate in what it's reporting and what it's telling us. So
10 out of 10 recommend reading through it, man. If not just for it being a literary masterpiece.
Yes.
But I do think you read it with a genuinely open heart and open mind, seeking to know God. I think you will find him.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
100%. God will show himself to you. He does.
Yeah. So I guess Vapin, as we wrap up, man, what are some final thoughts, or if you could leave the audience with a little nugget of truth or some hope, what would you want to say to them?
Gosh, that's tough. That's what would I say? Nugget of truth would be that there is a creator out there, that he does love you very much, and that he does know who you are, and he's waiting for you. And when you're finally ready and you're willing and you're able, he'll show himself.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why when you look at people that have like come to faith and stuff like that, there's a reason why that someone named Jesus of Nazareth that was born about 2025 years ago, right? Give or take, that he has had more impact on the world than any other man that has ever walked the face of this earth. Yeah. No one else in history. No one. I don't care who you're talking about. No one has had a greater impact on humankind in history than Jesus of Nazareth. So, I think it's worth checking out. Eternity is a real long time to be wrong, and it's worth
That's
it.
good, man. Yeah.
It's worth it to check it out.
Yeah. I all pros and no cons from checking it out, you know?
Yeah,
Uh, nothing but not it would be nothing but beneficial.
yeah,
Um, even if you don't ultimately come to believe it, I do think just having, experience reading the Bible is just, instrumental in impacting your life for the better.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy to me because like I do love history, so I don't know how many of you guys have watched the show by what is it, Graham, Edward Graham? I forget the character guy's name, but he has a show documentary on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And he's like, talking about like, well, human history has been written wrong. There's all these things, and it's true. There's a lot about history that they gloss over, that they don't pay attention to, they don't want to admit because it means their history, how they wrote history is wrong, especially in the Americas. But where he keeps talking about like there was some kind of catastrophic event that happened back and stuff. It's like, well, maybe, it's the flood that happened. And that's also been reported in different cultures all throughout the centuries in
Yeah,
different fashions.
basically
So,
every major religion reports has a flood account. So
yeah, a
it's
lot
like
of
there
ancient
had to have been some
societies. Yeah.
sort of global event that
Yes.
happened. If every religion is saying the same thing, then yeah, it obviously did happen.
Well, I mean, even if you look at, say, for example, like the amber, right, that they find
Mhm.
with like mosquitoes and different stuff trapped in there, there's oxygen bubbles in there. And so when they sample these oxygen bubbles, it's got a higher concentration of oxygen than our world does today. How did that happen? Right. Then you look at the fossils that they find still has soft tissue.
Hmm.
Well, how's that possible? After millions of years, that should not be there. That's a scientific impossibility. There should be no soft tissue on dinosaur bones if they're millions and millions and billions of years old. It's a scientific impossibility.
Yeah.
You know, same thing. The law of thermodynamics is not the law of thermodynamics. That's a breakdown of everything, but the law of angular momentum, I think is what it's called, where something in a frictionless state is spinning one way, it will continue to spin in the same direction until it meets resistance or force. How did we get our solar system where everything is spinning in a different direction? Some are spinning backwards, some are being north to south, some doing south to north.
Yeah.
The evolutionists will tell you, well, it's because they got hit with a meteor. I'm like, really? You realize to have a rock that size, there wouldn't be a planet left.
Yeah, it would destroy the planet.
Yeah, it would. To get it to stop spinning and to spin in a different direction. Yeah. I mean, it's just, but they just want to do this, they just want to do this, and it's like, it's just, to me, it's obvious. God created the universe that way to frustrate man later on. To be like, there's no escaping it that he did create it.
Yeah, I have
It's just,
it's a little crazy theory, but I do think as we get closer and closer to the end times that there's going to be scientific discoveries that are just
mm-hmm.
proving God more and more in almost every area of life. So like they're looking into the solar system and they're seeing God out there. They're
Yep.
looking into microbes through a stethoscope, or not a stethoscope, a microscope, and they're seeing God there. They're looking into, the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean. They're seeing God there. They start to see God everywhere.
Yeah.
I do think God has a sense of humor like that, where
Oh,
where
he
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 would do
does.
something like that.
There is a story, and I can't remember the name of the king from the Old Testament, where back in the 50s or 60s, they were like, this guy never existed. The prevailing thought was that the Bible's wrong. See, we've proven the Bible wrong. This guy never existed in history. Well, about 5-10 years later, someone's digging out in the middle of the sand and they find a palace buried in the sands. And guess whose name is on every single brick in that palace? The guy they said that didn't exist. And it was funny because it was like God was like, okay, you want to think that he's not real? Okay, here's his name here and here and here and here and here and here. All over the freaking palace, the guy's name is stamped stone. And I just thought that was so funny because, God does have a sense of humor, 100%. I
Yeah.
think so.
He's the author of humor, man. I know a lot of
Yes.
people don't talk about that, but he is the author of humor. I actually wonder, like, really, like, wonder what his sense of humor is ultimately likable. Like we get like glimpses of
Yeah.
it, but I do think like it's the purest, best sense of humor in
Oh
all of
yeah.
existence.
I think the disciples had a real good time walking the earth with Jesus when he was doing his ministry. You know,
Yeah, without a
it's,
doubt.
without a doubt. You know, I mean, it's one of those things that I wish that I could have been there for. Being on this side, it's okay because I see God do things in a different way that the disciples never imagined. Um, and I think that with everything that's going on, everything is pointing in that direction of one world government, all that other stuff. Unfortunately, how soon that's going to happen, anybody's guess, but everyone's kind of pushing towards that whole thing. Digital currency is here to stay. It
Yeah.
just is. It
Yeah.
just is.
I mean, I don't use cash for anything anymore. I haven't in a long time, you know?
I know it's weird, right? And guess what? It was gradual.
Yeah.
When's the last time you really remember using cash?
Yeah. Actually, there, that when I visited New York a couple years ago, and we went to this orchard, and it was like cash only. I was pissed off. I was like, "What?" I was like, "Who carries cash anymore?" you know?
Excuse me. Mhm.
Um, but they still did, but it is definitely becoming obsolete.
Yeah. And so it's going to be interesting to see that whole transition. If you read the white papers by the Federal Reserve on the digital dollar and stuff like that, it's terrifying, you guys. It's absolutely terrifying. They're talking about putting our money on different tracks. So they will give you a track of money to do whatever. You have to spend it by a certain amount of time or only on certain things. They're going to be able to control it through the computer that way. I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And it's like straight out of like the book of Revelation where you can't buy or sell except he who has the mark. So whoever controls that system can control how your money is spent, what it gets traded for, all that kind of stuff. And they're openly talking about it in their white papers.
Jesus.
It's crazy. It is
Yeah.
crazy. It is really crazy. So,
Guys, get right with the Lord, man. Strongly
mhm.
encourage you. Strongly encourage you. But Vapin, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and
Thanks for having
share
me,
your
dude.
wealth of knowledge, man. It's just been awesome. And we'll probably do something together sometime because I definitely enjoyed this. I love talking about theology and
I do too. I do too.
the things of God. So I definitely enjoyed it. Let's rate somebody out.
Okay.
Let's I think I'm
Appreciate
gonna
that.
do my boy Resident of Kanto because he's on right now.
Well, that'd
And
be good. I don't ever get to go. He's always rating me. I don't get a chance to rate him.
yeah, so we'll
Same thing with Deadpool because he does a show in the afternoon, which your show is good, Deadpool, by the way. I enjoy hanging out in there. I enjoy conversation.
Deadpool, I'm gonna have to check out your show because I don't think I'm following you. Yeah, well, now I am. So I'll
Yeah,
definitely check.
Deadpool, you still here? Because he does the Fury Cast, Afternoon Fury Cast.
That's cool. I'll have to check you out, man.
Mm-hmm.
All
Put your
right,
link in chat, dude, if you don't mind.
cool.
Yeah, go ahead. Rate
All
us
right,
out. Let's go.
let's rate them out. Boom.
Resident of Kanto.
Awesome guy, my IRL friend.
Very
So
cool. Yeah, Fury Cast. I'll get you a link
cool,
for
cool,
sure.
cool. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Have a blessed